adjourn from executive session and return to the regular business.
I'll make it. Second.
Did you get that? Herbiardi
Just a
was
second, that's right.
motion, and Parmigiano was second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, this time we're going to have a proclamation from National Hospice Palliative Care Month and accepting Ms. Lee Ellison. And John Quinlan, he's not here?
No.
Okay, and George Gray, they're going to give it palliative.
Hello, Lee.
Oh, that's
Hi.
it. I need a motion to adopt the proclamation, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Um,
Motion.
Motion,
So moved.
motion. Okay, second, George? Okay, all in favor, please signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Lee.
Hi.
George, I'm very honored to do this. Last 4 years, I've done this twice.
Thank
Once
you.
with my father-in-law and just recently with my mother.
Okay.
And there's nothing more comforting is to knowing that in one's most difficult times, there are people there that not only comfort them, but also understand. And also help the family to understand. Because while the person who's going through this is going through their own
Right.
time in life, everybody else around them is also going through it and they don't understand what's going on any more than the person that's involved. So I'm going to read this, and I take out all of the whereas because they get me right. I'll say one whereas and the rest of them go. Whereas all people are encouraged to learn about options for care, options like hospice and palliative, is it palliative or palliative?
Palliative.
Palliative care, before they are confronted with health care crisis, and to share such wishes through appropriate advanced care planning activities. Hospice and palliative care empower people to live as fully as possible, surrounded and supported by family and loved ones, despite serious and life-limiting illness. Hospice and palliative care bring patients and family caregivers the highest quality care delivered by an interdisciplinary team of skilled professionals that includes physicians, nurses, social workers, therapists, counselors, health aides, spiritual care providers, and others, which should say angels, because that's what everybody is, who make the wishes of each patient and family a priority. Advanced care planning involves making decisions about the health care an individual would want to receive if he or she were facing a serious or life-limiting illness, if it would not be able to speak for themselves. Through pain management and symptom control, caregiver training, and assistance in emotional, spiritual support, allowing patients to live fully up to their final moments, surrounded and supported by the faces of loved ones. This is bringing back to things. Friends and committed caregivers, hospice and palliative care focus on quality of living. Each year, hospice saves Medicare more than $2 billion by providing solutions for physicians, care to patients, and comfort to families anywhere and at any time. Every year, more than 1.65 million Americans living with life-limiting illnesses and their families receive care from the nation's hospice programs in communities throughout the United States. And more than 430,000 trained volunteers contribute 19 million hours of service to hospice programs annually. Hospice and palliative care providers encourage all people to learn more about the options of care and to share their wishes with family, loved ones, and their healthcare professionals. Now therefore be it resolved that the Sussex County Freeholders do hereby proclaim November 2018 as National Hospice and Palliative Care Month and encourage citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of care at the end of life and to observe this month with appropriate activities and programs. Freeholder Director Jonathan Rose, Deputy Director Sylvia Tillo, Freeholders Carl Mazzaro, Herb Riley, and George Graham. And before I ask you to speak, I noticed in front of Karen Ann Quinlan, it says the sooner the better.
Yeah.
And I learned this with both my father-in-law and particularly with my mother, that you wait to the last moment before you have to make that adjustment in your mind. And at that point in time, you've lost time. And a lot of times you've lost some quality time.
Right.
So I want to thank you, Lee, for being here.
Thank you.
And I'd like to, you can take a picture. Floor takes the best pictures.
One more. Thank you.
And please speak to us.
Well, thank you very much for the proclamation, and thank you for helping us to raise awareness about the importance of hospice, not only during National Hospice Month, which is in November, but all year round. And yes, our campaign is sooner is better, and trying to let people know that hospice is not something to be scared of. You know, it's and the sooner that we can get in there, the sooner that we can help your family deal with the life-limiting illness of someone that you love. So Karen and Quinlan Hospice has been helping Sussex County since 1980. We have offices in Sussex County, Warren, and Pike County, Pennsylvania. And thank you, everyone in the community, for supporting Karen and Quinlan Hospice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a presentation by George Graham, who is a member of the Transparency Committee, and he'll present his report on findings and recommendations.
I'm going to ask for some help on this one. So, can you have me roll up to the podium so you can bring your...
Absolutely.
Can you announce who you are? So we...
All right, good evening. I'm Nicholas D'Agostino, for those of you that do not know me, and I am on the Transparency Committee.
And so is Carl Lazaro, who is going to be so transparent that he's going to tell us who's on that telephone call. Because that's the kind of guy Carl is.
Would you like me to read the report, or would you like to do it?
Let me start it, and then we'll kind of, if you don't mind, we're going to go back and forth. Jonathan had a very strong commitment to transparency, and I felt one of the reasons why I wanted to be on the committee was I felt that in many ways we are transparent. And one of the best parts about this transparency report is indicating those areas that we are transparent. There are a couple of small recommendations, but beyond that, we are very supportive of making sure that we have our minutes taken care of in a proper way, that all of our meetings are handled in a professional way, and whenever there is a quorum, that we respect that. And I'll read some of it, and then you can pick up. We'll go back and forth like you would on Mr. Rogers' show. Transparency Committee report, November 7th, 2018, and you have a few extras.
Oh yeah, give it to Terry.
Yes,
Terry,
everyone has copies.
All right, are there some that you can put around here? If anybody else in the audience wants to pick one up, I bet this guy over here in green is looking for one. He's got one here. The Sussex County Transparency Committee, newly formed this year, first met on June the 20th of 2018. And the committee members were Freeholders Carl Lazaro and George Graham, and Carl got first billing. That happened. Byron Mayor Alex Rubenstein, Walter Lures, Esquire, Nick D'Agostino, and the clerk of the board, Terry Lyons. The committee met 3 times, and through careful research of the administrative code, is pleased to report that our county is overall very proactive about being transparent with the public. The administrative code is what dictates, it's the rules that dictates how we conduct business in the county. And it handles everything from hiring practices, who is in charge of what, how our meetings are organized. Administrative code kind of lays out the rules. In municipalities, if you have a background in municipalities, it's primarily the bylaws. We call ours the administrative code. And a lot of our administrative code is also dictated by state statute. And that's why our administrative code reads the same way. And anytime you want to challenge what I have to say, you can throw it out there, because we're transparent.
Quite.
Okay. The practice of video recording freeholder meetings makes them accessible to everyone. Sussex County is one of only 6 counties of 20 New Jersey counties that videotape their meetings. Only 6, so we have to get a hold of the other ones and make them do it too. In addition, in 2017, the Board of Chosen Freeholders took meetings to municipalities, therefore expanding their efforts in transparency. Since 2017, 6 municipalities have hosted, and it is recommended that this practice continue and be incorporated into the administrative code. It seems our staff is accommodating and efficient with Oprah requests, ensuring that the public has access to relevant information. In regards to both the agendas and the addendums for freeholder meetings, we find that the current practice is clear, concise, and considerate, as the county posts these items on the website well in advance of scheduled meetings. Article 9 of the Administrative Code lists all 13 independent board, agencies, and offices. The Administrative Code is available on the website, and you can read it, you can download it, you can pass it around to your friends at parties. It's always there for anybody who wants to look at it. All posts to the county website, all of the committees post to the county website, but we found that the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Service does not conduct meetings, and the 2 Board of School estimates do not post agenda or minutes in a timely nature. But there is sort of a reason for that, and that is that the Board of School estimates only meet once a year, and so the minutes are not approved until the next year, so it sort of creates a difficulty in getting those out. Missing perhaps from the Article 9 is the Lake-Opakon Commission, formerly known as the Lake-Opakon Regional Planning Board. This board has been recently reorganized, and a link to their website has been posted on the county site. Article 11 of the Administrative Code establishes 11 advisory groups, and all but the Educational Partnership post meeting information to the website. After much consideration, the committee has 4 key recommendations to put forth to the Sussex County Board of Chosen Freeholders. Closed session minutes policy change. All executive minutes should be reviewed every 6 months. I completely agree with this. Back in 2013, 14, 15, 16, because of big backlogs of things that had to do with the solar project that went on for hours upon hours, many of our executive minutes were not done in a timely manner. But I would like to report that Terry has been excellent in making sure that they're put out on a timely manner. The review that we're talking about here has to do with those items that have been already handled and finished. For instance, we might have a meeting about a property that we may be interested in either selling or buying or something of that nature. And then after a certain period of time, after it no longer becomes a confidential matter, we should be reviewing that and we should be putting that out to the public. And that's something that we're all in agreement on, I think. The new and potentially still redacted version of these minutes could be posted online on the county website for public review. Agenda freeze. Freeze all changes to the agenda at the close of business 2 days prior to the scheduled meeting, which we basically do that now. Don't we do that now?
I'm sorry.
You're the phone.
I'm just listening. I've had a mechanical difficulty here. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Just say yes.
What was your question?
Yes.
You break my heart.
I'm being honest, I just discovered a malfunction. Go ahead.
You got a lot of color in your face right now. Okay. Has to do with the agenda freeze. Number 2, the agenda freeze. What we do right now is we post our agenda on Friday. Our meetings are on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah,
We post the meeting, we post the agenda on Friday. We do have 48 hours in order to adjust that. So the 2 days prior, in terms of a scheduled meeting, this is by law is what we're doing now, is that correct? Within 48 hours? We don't change the agenda within 48 hours.
There hasn't been a situation for me to change it. I don't think it's been codified yet.
Okay, so this is codification. Is that what this is?
Correct.
Mhm.
This is to have many things codified. A lot of what you are reading on this report is already current practice, which is a great thing. But to make sure it continues in the future, it's important to codify it in the administrative code.
Nick, you look really good up there.
Thank you. Is it the beard?
It's very official. Freeze all changes to the addendum at the close of business 1 day prior to the scheduled meeting. Have the agendas, addendums, and all supporting documentation posted to the county website adhering to the same time schedule. And these are the things that we are doing. I guess this is for codification. And Thor, you must have somebody who's going to do this in case you're like on vacation, right?
I don't need to post the agendas. That's done by the clerk of the board's office and by the records management office.
I learned something every day I come here. Meeting agenda, number 3. Current meeting agenda format needs to be codified into the administrative code. Okay, I know it is now, is it not? In the procedure,
We follow a slightly different format
okay,
than
but
what's in the code.
isn't there I mean, everybody here has been on a governing body. isn't there a, sort of like a flexibility that you can do that you can make an adjustments on, or do we have to codify it to the administrative code?
Typically, the order of business that a governing body will follow is codified either in local ordinance or in administrative code. And I think all that this points out is that there's a minor recommendation in terms of moving the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, and then just simply ensuring that the format that we're following is properly codified.
Okay.
Does that give, I have a question in regard to that. When you codify that, there's not, or can you put something in there that we may modify it if necessary? Can you put that in there? Or?
You have certain flexibilities within your authority to provide caveats that would allow you to make minor modifications, sure.
Well, we
would work with county council to ensure that the language was, appropriate, but.
We also did something in 2016, which was an action that we take now, which is accepting the agenda, which hadn't been done previous to that, which really made the Wild West City sometimes up here because the agenda was all over the place. So I think that brought control to the meetings. However, it was suggested that the moment of silence follow the Pledge of Allegiance, which I guess it doesn't. I thought that's how we did it. But also to be noted in the code is that the county administrator provides a verbal summary for each resolution before action is taken, which is basically codifying what you have done since you've been here. We didn't have that previous to that. We had a reading of title by the director, but what you do is you bring a more robust explanation to what's going on.
Correction.
Robust.
A moment of silence precedes the Pledge of Allegiance.
I think the recommendation is that it be reversed.
Yes, and I'm not sure that that's appropriate. Because what we've previously done is had a moment of silence, then the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we go into the meeting. Now we're going to have Pledge of Allegiance, moment of silence,
Yeah, but that would start the
and
meeting.
then what?
Does the Pledge of Allegiance start the meeting?
Yeah,
That's why the moment of
Logically-
silence. That's why the moment of silence precedes the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, actually, you have a call to order. So you could have call to order, Pledge of Allegiance, moment of silence, or you could have call to order, moment of silence, Pledge of Allegiance. I've seen it done
Yeah.
both ways.
I like the way we have it, moment of silence.
As long as we don't have to sing, I'm good. Once we have to sing, everybody notices that I'm singing, and that's a
I
bad
don't know
thing.
why they would change that. I don't know.
It was a suggestion by.
But is it really a, because right now, you're right, we do the moment of silence, and then we move into the Pledge of Allegiance, and that gets the meeting
That
moving.
gets the meeting moving.
So it sort of has, I think it has relevance,
It has a
a flow.
And the moment of silence is almost similar to a benediction, which we do before the Pledge of Allegiance.
And the person who leads the Pledge of Allegiance has control over the moment of silence.
Well, tonight, I think we're going to accept these under advisement, we're not going to vote
They're
on
just
them.
simply recommendations.
Yeah, right, okay, all right, yeah, okay. Access to video recordings, yeah, this is one that, clearly post the link to each meeting's YouTube video alongside the minutes for that particular meeting, making it easier for the public to find, which we sort of do that. Is there a disconnect on that one, Thor, if I?
We post one link to all the videos, so we don't tie each meeting's video to each meeting's minutes.
Right,
Nick?
I've been able to find it.
I have a
So-
question can I ask Nick?
Oh, of course.
Have you looked at the video, did you actually look at that, and does that work well the way it is, or does it need to be changed?
The video itself or the way it's posted?
The way it's posted.
The way it's posted on the website, we had discussed recommending that each individual meeting have its individual YouTube link there, the hyperlink, so that you just click on it, it brings you right to that meeting from that date, rather than bringing you to a playlist of 20 videos and you have to find it. It might make it a little easier for especially people that are not used to YouTube and all that.
Okay, so we're talking about being able to find the meetings with the link.
Correct.
Okay, so is that something we're going to do? Or?
Sounds like a good idea.
That's reasonable.
It makes it easier.
Yeah.
Is that difficult to do?
I don't think so.
And he's the guy.
Absolutely.
So what do you want to do with these? You want to have do we need to vote on them or just?
No, we're just-
Just discuss them?
No, these are this is the report of an ad hoc committee that was put together at the request of the Freeholder director. I appreciate Nick coming this evening, having been, I know, a valuable member of the committee, and Freeholder Graham's, reporting on what the Transparency Committee found. These are all items that, appear to be quite reasonable. The board can take these back then and provide the administrative staff the appropriate guidance as to how you would like to see these things addressed. A number of them contemplate an amendment to the county's administrative code, and I know it's something we've been talking for a number of months, that there are other operational areas within the code that do need to be updated. So we certainly, as we look to make the amendment to the administrative code, we could look to include the recommendations of the Transparency Committee into the larger amendment of the administrative code, and then that draft could be distributed to the Freeholder Board and give consideration to implementing this along with a number of other items to amend our code.
Well, there are some things. We made changes in the administrative code that had to do with Health and Human Services last, it was 2016.
Correct.
And it was done a little bit choppy. We just want, when we make changes, my recommendation, as someone who sat through that, is make sure that we have underlined cross-throughs, things like that, to make sure that all changes are handled in a very professional way.
I will make sure that occurs.
Yes.
And I know that even in the Department of Finance and Library Services, there were changes proposed during 2016 that did not make it into the final, the final adopted version. So as I mentioned, there are some other operational items that need to be looked at in addition to the good work of the Transparency Committee.
I want to read the last sentence, but then I want to just say something about the committee itself. Thank you to the Board of Chosen Freeholders for your time and your consideration of these recommendations. We appreciate your dedication to transparency and your support of this process. I want to go back to the people who were involved here. Besides Carl and myself, Byron Mayor, Alex Rubenstein, Walter Lures, and Nick Dagstein. Alex acted also as our de facto clerk. He took the notes. He's very engaged in making sure that not only is his town very transparent, but he was also very helpful with the county. Walter Lures is a well-known attorney who's I guess his practice is more or less challenging towns' transparency. And for Walter to basically say that we're doing a good job here was a very high mark. It was an accolade, it really was. And sometimes it gets very challenging. Sometimes we have some very complicated Oprah things. And most of the time, Terry's paying attention, so she knows what's going on with it. But we're an open government. That's what we are. I mean, I've been here for almost 7 years, and then that's what, or 6 years, and that's what I intended to have when we were here, and I was very happy to find out that we were close to the mark. We could do a little better. We can always do a little better. But Nick, I want to thank you particularly. You were the guy who was like the one that said why, why not. Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate that. My fiance probably doesn't appreciate as many questions, the whys and the why nots. But speaking on what George said, Walter also said in the committee that if we do release the executive session minutes on the internet, on the website, we would be the first governing body that he knows of that does that, which is pretty remarkable. And I was personally very impressed I know you guys get a lot of flack, but you know, I'm on a board of education, and I'm going to be taking a lot of these ideas and also current practices that you have back to my board. Overall, you guys are doing a fantastic job as far as transparency and many other things. So I want to thank you for your time as well.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, now we have a discussion on fund balance with Elko Argueta, our county treasurer, and Ray Serenelli, our county auditor.
Do you have any more of these? Do you have any more of these? Can we at least get one?
Ray Serenelli, County Auditor. So this is something that's been in the works for a little while, but has been discussed more frequently in the last 2 years or so. Rating agencies call the administration and the finance department each year, and they have what they call a rating agency call, or a rating call. And they go through a whole litany of questions, most of which we've been well prepared for, but for the last about 2 years or so, they keep asking, do you have a formal written policy for fund balance? And you know, your rating is a combination of many rankings, and that got added that it be formal and written recently because both rating agencies have asked for it every single time for the last about 2 years. So as Elka came on as a new CFO, the timing was right for her to go ahead and meet that requirement so that your rating can get either a check mark or a +1 or whatever they put in each box as they're keeping score, instead of a minus, which is viewed now. Before, they would accept that there was a verbal policy, and if it looked apparent that you had a reasonable amount of fund balance, they would accept that. So in the past, it was acceptable. We're just trying to keep your rating in good stead, and believe this will help you and check one more box as it relates to that. And it's, you know, it's sound policy. I think I want to say it's plain vanilla, but it, you know, provides enough leeway to accomplish what you need to accomplish, et cetera, and still portray to the rating agencies that all those decisions that go into fund balance are made in a conscious and thoughtful manner.
Now, does this fund balance include the fuzzy balance, which is the nursing home money?
No, this policy just purely deals with the title fund balance,
Okay.
not the other reserve. There are other reserves that are considered by the rating agency that they give you some partial credits depending on what kind it is, but specifically they're looking for the policy as it relates to fund
This
balance.
specifically relates to working capital.
This is what is referred to as unrestricted fund balance. As Mr. Serenelli has indicated, there are other reserves that the county holds that are restricted for any number of reasons. But this is, yes, Carl, this is the fund balance that's part of the county's current fund.
I have another question. Probably don't want it, but I guess anyway. There's a just going through 2015, 16, and 17 on this. You have the blue in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Under the increase, you have a negative, positive of 300,000 and then a positive 2 million. How do numbers shift that dramatically?
Well, primarily, that almost all, or the biggest part of that has to do with the revenues generated by the clerk and the sheriff. The foreclosure fees that were generated, I think were over $2.5 million in that time frame. And there were also some larger unexpended balances in the appropriation reserves. So, along with the economy starting to take off a little bit more in the last few years, provides a little more interest income, more construction. There's generally, in a good economy, it's easier to generate fund balance than in a poor economy. And you know, if you're looking at the schedule, you can see your fund balance sort of, you really were doing what you should be doing, which is build fund balance during the years of a good economy and build your reserves, and then in the years of a poor economy, you can put more back on the table so as to not burden taxpayers during the recession. And that's, in my view, that's good planning. Otherwise, if you just keep giving all the fund balance back, you have the least increases in your best year or best economic years, and the worst increases during the poorest economic times. So looking at your fund balance, to me, represents good planning.
Well, and in 2009 and 10, which is just previously before I got on the board, we had started out, there was about an $18 million fund balance, and then in 2009, it went down by over $2 million. In 2010, it went down by over $4 million because they were trying to level things out against the bad economy. That dropped us all the way down to $10 million in some. And since I've been on, we've been trying to move that upwards, and that's why we were making some minimal strides every year to get to there, but we still were only around 13 million last year until we had a reasonably good year last year, which brought us up to 15, which is still $3 million less than where we were back in 2008. So percentage-wise, it's still a lower percentage on a fund balance than what we had against the budget back in those days. So that's why I agree with you that we have to be careful in good times, especially when you have a vibrant economy, not to drain it down, because when the big hit comes, which can be everything, that was 2009 and 10 were not just a situation with the bad economy, but it was also when we were putting a lot of money out for bridges. So we were getting double hit from the hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
True.
I know I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to somebody else. Sorry.
The other thing that I just might comment on is to direct the freeholders really to page 3, which is where the policy is clearly articulated. There is a
Following sheet.
Oh, that was,
yeah.
This thing you have here.
Yeah, this was what I had sent to the board a few weeks back, just giving you a copy of the draft policy, and made copies available this evening. But what I would point out is really probably 3 pieces of this. One is that the policy itself articulates that the county look to maintain a fund balance equal to 15%. And that is a level that the rating agencies identify for governments such as ours to have that as our target. The second piece of this that I would direct your attention to is in the sentences that continue, is that the county considers a fund balance of less than 12% to be cause for concern. And that speaks to what Mr. Serinelli was just addressing. But also, too, in the alternative, then, that the county would consider an unrestricted fund balance of over 20% to be unnecessary. So it establishes a target and provides the county with a range where we would look to maintain our fund balance. And then the last piece of this, you see in that final paragraph that talks about the fund balance appropriation policy, and it's the second half of the last sentence in that first paragraph, that the county will only appropriate what is reasonably expected to be regenerated or replenished in any given year. And that speaks to the county having a fund balance that can be regenerated and can be used in subsequent years to help offset taxes. And you would not want to create a situation where you're appropriating more than could be replenished, because then by default, you've created a situation where you're going to see larger than what otherwise would be expected tax increases. So I would say that for the policy, those are really the three top things that the freeholders be concerned with, as you give some consideration to adopting this as what the county's policy moving forward. And as I've commented, I believe a few times over the last several months, we are in the process now of drafting the county's 2019 budget. And it certainly is appropriate at this time for the freeholders to give consideration to a fund balance policy, because not only is it something that the rating agencies look for governments to have, but also it's another piece in the overall preparation of the county's budget is to provide the administrative officers and the finance officers with what the board's expectations are relative to appropriating fund balance as part of the revenues that will comprise any subsequent year's budget.
Does anyone have any questions regarding?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do you have any questions regarding?
I do.
You do? Okay.
So I'm looking at the fund balance from 2008. And I see there are situations where it went down to 11 million, 10 million, then 11. 2011, 12, 2012, 10, 2013, 11, 14, 12, 15, 13 starts coming back up. And now, so the freeholders at that time took that money to offset taxes due to, I guess, a recession. Is that what happened there, Alf, as far as you know? Or Ray, would you know?
Kind of an unfair question to Elka.
Well, I know you
Okay.
know. So
Then it drops to you.
it
The
goes.
same balance has been, 5.1 million was used in 14, 15, 16.
Right.
And the fact of what was regenerated based on the revenues or appropriation reserves that were not spent.
I think the question that Herb's trying to ask is it appropriate to control taxes by using the fund balance?
All right, I think if I may, I don't want to step on Alpha's toes, but how I would look at these numbers, and particularly the years that Herb has pointed out, is that 2011, 2010, 2011, 2012, given the percentage, or given the fund balance as a percentage of the prior year's budget, would be reason for concern under this policy as drafted.
That's
Yeah.
very eloquent. Thank you.
And you were a kid back then, so how would you remember?
Carl, I'm feeling younger every day.
So so the freeholder board would be restricted based on this policy from saying we need to go below was it 12%? We need to use more than, might be 10%.
If we used it and dropped it below the fund balance, he says that we would have to create a corrective action plan to get the fund balance back up. So we would have to have a plan of how to regenerate it.
Okay.
It speaks to something that Ray had said earlier in his presentation, is that this provides guidance as well as flexibility. And that's why I emphasized both the target and the range, because it's recognized that there are unforeseen circumstances that occur that a board would be faced with and have to make decisions. It's when you would get outside of that target, or that range, excuse me, that the board would have to give some consideration then if say in 1 year you were to use significantly more fund balance than what was being generated, you would have the board would have a responsibility in working with your financial professionals to come up with a plan as to how that would be mitigated in future years. So it allows, this provides a couple of benefits. One, as has already been stated, it's something that rating agencies look for a government to have as considering when they're going to rate their debt. Secondly, it provides guidelines for the administrative and financial professionals as we work towards the development of your budget. But lastly, it provides you with some flexibility to be able to deal with those unforeseen circumstances and allows then, again, for that discussion to take place so that if at some point in time more fund balance is used than, say, another year, it gives us the opportunity to identify a way forward.
There was one other thing. Establish a key element, setting guidelines for the use and maintenance of the fund balance. So what does that mean in layman's terms?
Well, we want to make sure when we're using fund balance that we're not using it to just pay for ordinary expenses. It should be one time. If we want to use more fund balance and there's something that's a one-time occurrence, it's okay because it's a one-time revenue and it's a one-time expense. So it's not, you're not going to keep depleting it.
You don't keep paying the electric bill out of the fund balance.
Right.
Operations
There's
that has to recur.
And if we are going over in hitting the high level of fund balance, we would want to put money towards some of our reserves for snow trusts so that when we have big winters where, like last March, where we had 3 days of snow, we could pull money from that trust to pay for the overtime and the salt and not be hitting the budget.
Thanks.
So,
When we use it for a recurring thing, you have to come up with, say if you need $100,000 against the recurring, you need $100,000 this year, then you need another $100,000 next year.
Right.
So you're paying it down twice, so you're losing 200 and on and on and on and on and on.
Just look, it took 10 years to regenerate.
But a lot of that had to do with because there were expenditures that were handled in those tough years, in 8, 9, or 9, 10, 11, that were recurring. And putting the brakes on those in 13, 14, and 15 was the difficult. And believe me, Mr. Serenelli's made threats on more than one occasion of jumping up on the table and screaming at the top of his lungs. I've seen him do the screaming. I haven't seen the jump on the table part. But
It's coming.
but it's good policy to have something in hand because it can become, and I've been here, I've seen it, where it became politically expedient to, as one particular person said, empty all the cups and saucers for every nickel and dime we can find. And what happens next year, you have to find that nickel and dime and another nickel and dime in order to just maintain that same structure.
right. It's like your your savings account. You don't want to use it to pay your cable bill. You're going to use it to pay when the car breaks down.
You know, you
So-
put the other one on a credit card.
There you go.
Thank God the state of New Jersey doesn't allow us credit cards.
Yes.
And that's this fund balance policy is one of the
10%.
policies that I'm trying in the finance department to, writing a lot of different policies related to everyday financial governance. So this is one that has to be adopted by the Freeholder Board, which is why I'm here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like it's good policy.
If it,
Great job.
if it suits the board, then there is a draft resolution that's been prepared that the board could give consideration to, and we can have listed on a subsequent agenda if that pleases the board.
Just if we get like a preview of it, just.
Yeah, actually, it's included. It's on. It's actually.
I know I saw the one that's in here. Is that the one?
Mhm, yeah, that would be.
Because if that's the one that we're doing, if we just can look at it real closely and if we have any.
Absolutely. That's why I'm just saying is
Okay.
if you have an opportunity to review it and then.
Yeah, because I don't want to hamstring for future boards, but I do agree that having some sort of an action plan in place in case of need, that's a very good idea.
Yeah, and I can say that the policy is drafted by ELCA, and has been fully vetted by not only the auditors, but also our financial advisor. Also, one of the things I hoped Mr. Serinelli had mentioned is we actually had a rating call yesterday, and we discussed about a draft policy having been prepared, and we also represented that the matter was listed for discussion by the Freeholder Board. And actually, Ray, if I could ask you, just at the conclusion of the call, what the representative from Moody's had indicated to us.
Yeah, they were very happy that we were formalizing the policy and that it would give guidance going forward, that the wisdom of the policy will carry on beyond this Freeholder Board, you know, as other elected officials. It was a lot more important to them. I knew it was important because they had been bringing it up, but it was a lot more important to them that you were in fact going to have a policy adopted within the next month or two. It's going to be discussed tonight and then subsequently adopted. They made a big deal out of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. It's easy to abuse.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, we have no public hearings this evening, so it's time for public session from the floor. Comments are limited to 5 minutes or less and must only address issues regarding agenda items, followed by a 3-minute response time from the Freeholder Board. Please state your name and print your name and municipality on the sign-in sheet. Could I have a motion to open the floor for public comment?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, would anyone like to speak this public comment? No? If you're not hearing anyone, I'll bring it back. Could I have a motion to close, please?
Motion
Public
closed.
comment?
Second.
A motion, second by Kirk Yardley. All
Hey,
in favor,
we're
please
emptied out
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, this time freeholders' comments. I'll start with you, George, on this side.
Just want to cover a couple of things on the Department of Health and Human Services. That first of all, the walking flu and pneumonia vaccines are being handled at our Wheatsworth facility on Thursday, November 8th, Thursday, November 15th, Monday, November 19th, and Monday, November 26th, between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. This is an ongoing program. We always continue this every year. This is the time of the year when we have to stuff the bus, and Carol Norbert is our star bus stuffer, and she is out there constantly. It runs between Friday, November 16th and Sunday, November 18th in various locations, including First Hope Bank in Andover, ShopRite of Newton, Franklin, Carl's Auto Body in Sparta, ShopRite again of Newton and Franklin on Saturday and Sunday. So all of those are very important. Medicare Part D annual open enrollment. This is a service by the county that's handled on a mostly volunteer basis using the State Health Insurance Assistance Program. We call it the SHIP program. It runs October 15th through December 7th, and anybody who's tried to figure out which way to go and has questions, there are people here who will help you go through that. Communicable disease investigations, I always call these out because people don't realize how much the health department does, but there were 129 reportable diseases diagnosed in the county between the 1st and the 31st. 94 were Lyme. That's the biggest one, so stay away from them. There's ticks. That's the main thing.
Stay out of the woods.
Yes.
You stay out of the woods. Even this time of the year, you have to be careful. That's all I have to.
Thank you. Herb?
Very brief, since just here to listen. The legislature continues to spend our money. We're now required to have a code red alert plan during hot weather situations, as well as a code blue during cold weather situations. Most of our communities have those. We do in Sussex County. We have both available, and some of our municipalities have them available also, which means you have cooling places for you to go when it's too hot, and then when it gets cold outside, we have warming places for you to go. And we're particularly good with our Department of Health in finding housing and shelter during the winter months, especially for people who are stuck out in the cold and don't have a place to go. So we do that very well. Apparently, there are some counties that don't, as George mentioned earlier. Tick is a real problem, so now the legislature's passing a bill on tick control. I'd explain it to you, but it's incomprehensible. That doesn't apply to us. The governor, in all his wisdom, is going to be passing a slew of 6 bills on gun control in the wake of the Pittsburgh synagogue massacre, as he calls it, and that will be coming out very shortly, and will be up for debate again, so we'll see what happens with that. And a little bit of trivia that I'd like to pass along to you. Did you know that the first Veterans Day was designated as Armistice Day on November 11, 1919?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. November
On the
11th.
first anniversary following the end of World War I, and it officially became a holiday when? 1938. See? You should know that.
Well, Carl, you were in high school in those days.
I was just starting grammar school. Roads and bridges are continuing to be filled up. There'll be a resolution later on in the meeting on 2 of the larger projects that are going on in the Wantage area. And the winter months, you see a lot of crack sealing and vehicles on the roadways now getting ready for winter. And that will be fired up and going. And I believe that's all I got to say.
Can I comment on something, Carl?
Sure. Be my guest.
Carl talked about the tick, new law. Could we have possibly mosquito people comment on that?
They did.
Oh, they did.
On this one?
Yeah,
on the tick?
On the tick one, because I really need clarification on it, because I believe that we may be responsible for either tick spraying or some sort of tick.
Okay. In summary, the legislation would add tick control duties to the responsibilities of the state and county mosquito control commissions. Would require counties to include in their annual tax levy the amount of money needed for mosquito and tick control. Although the legislation would authorize counties by resolution to conduct tick control activities, the bill would require counties to use existing revenues earmarked for mosquito control with no additional state funding. Surprise. Under current law, counties must conduct comprehensive mosquito control activities, which may include source control, trap setting, water management, surveillance, brush cleaning, public education, and other use of vector controls. Now, here's the important part. As noted in the committee, managing the growing tick population is much more difficult than controlling the mosquito population. There's no consensus among subject matter experts on how to effectively eradicate the critters. Ticks thrive on a variety of habitats, and many of the currently used pesticides are also harmful to the bugs we use, such as bumblebees and butterflies. The committee second referenced A4459, the Assembly Appropriations Committee for consideration, and Jack is meeting with the Assembly hoteling shortly to discuss how to preserve the legislation's original intent and make it more palatable for county governments to implement. Senate companion version 3022 is currently in the Senate Environment and Energy Committee awaiting consideration. So essentially what you're seeing, most ticks find their habitat on small white-footed mice. I don't know why I'm such an expert on this. Deer, foxes, and in the grass, and your dogs bring them in the house. And once in a while, then the dog lays beside the bed, you'll find one in your bed on the white sheets. You'll see this little black spot keep moving across the bed. You say, why is that black spot moving? And it's a tick. And they take a long time to go. They take about 24 hours to embed their head into your body and give you a little welt. And then you end up with Lyme disease or something else, and if you're lucky, nothing happens. They're invasive. They're difficult to control. If you spray your lawn with insecticides and stuff like that, then your pets walk on it and they absorb it into their paws and into their bodies, and they develop cancer. It's a very difficult thing to handle. So you have to treat all those things carefully. And ticks are more difficult than mosquitoes, because you can't do preventative measures with ticks that you can do with mosquitoes, like get rid of standing water, clean up old tires, don't let water accumulate in puddles and stuff where mosquitoes breed on your property. Am I doing this okay?
Well, you did a great job, Carl. I want to congratulate you. I think that you've done a great job. Very good, very informative. I'm concerned about one word in this legislation. It's called tick control.
Yeah.
What do they mean by tick?
Well, that's exactly what they're being backed off on. Is that you don't know what you mean by tick control. This is not like spraying for mosquitoes. It's much more complicated. So they're going back and reconsidering it. It has not passed yet.
Okay, good. Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Good job. Good job.
I'm done.
It's full of information. I just want to take a minute to thank all of our staff that organized the Salute to Veterans on Sunday. It was a beautiful day. It was a fun parade with all the motorcycles and all the different towns and veterans groups that were there. The new pin was gorgeous. It was a beautiful memento that was given to the veterans that were there, and I think everybody had a wonderful time. And I know it takes a lot of time to really organize something like that, and they did a wonderful job. And Guy Craig was a great what's the word?
Master of Ceremonies.
Master of Ceremonies, thank you. He did a wonderful job as well. So thank you to all. And I do want to remind everybody that November 11th is Veterans Day, and there are different veterans ceremonies that are happening around the town. I know there's one in Stanhope, there's one in the Pack-On. They usually take place at 11 o'clock across the country. All right, we had comments. Approval of consent agenda. Greg, would you like to discuss or give us a summary?
Yes, Freeholder, it would be appropriate that a motion be given and then
Okay. I have a motion to move the consent agenda.
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay. The items that the freeholders are considering this evening, Resolution A authorizes the modification of an agreement for home-delivered meals to the homebound, the frail, and elderly. Resolution B also provides for an amendment to an existing agreement that provides food service weekdays and weekend home-delivered meals. Resolution C provides for home health aid services to the homebound. D, this is grant funding that is to prevent childhood lead exposure. Resolution E provides for grant funds that allow for the increasing awareness to low-income Medicare beneficiaries about those programs and the awareness and use of free and reduced cost preventive benefits covered by Medicare. Resolution F provides for grant funding for the County Division of Health to provide right-to-know education and outreach activities. G provides for the insertion of a special item of revenue for the Homeland Security Grant Program that the freeholders authorized at the last meeting. Resolution H provides for the insertion of this item of revenue, which comes to the county from the Forward Franklin Fund. Resolution I is the acceptance of that grant, where those monies will be used by the Franklin branch of the library for the purchase of new seating for the meeting room and quiet room. Resolution J provides for the renewal of the agreement for Skyland's Risk Management to serve as the county's risk management consultant. Resolution K provides for the purchase of software for the Sheriff's Department as they look to implement an email server or email service that will allow them to comply with retention requirements, which will make compliance with OPRA easier for the Sheriff's Department. Resolution L provides for the purchase of a Ram truck for the Division of Public Works, the Office of Roads. Resolution M provides for the authorization for the application For the county sexual assault response team and forensic nurse examiner program, which is managed by the prosecutor's office. And this resolution provides for a sub-grant award for the Stop Violence Against Women Act, again, a program that is managed out of the prosecutor's office. Resolution O is for the final approval for the purchase of development easement. This is pursuant to the recommendation from the Sussex County Agricultural Development Board for the purchase of development rights on a farm in Frankfort Township. Resolution P provides for the authorization to enter into an agreement with our licensed site remediation professional, bless you, for pollution that's been found during the construction of Bridge X09. This is existing pollution, nothing caused by the county, but is being remediated under the jurisdiction of the Department of Environmental Protection. Resolution Q provides for an agreement for the county to enter into with Frankfurt for road sign manufacturing services. And that concludes the resolutions on the consent agenda.
Okay, the Board of Chosen Freeholders of the County of Sussex has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of various proposed resolutions and determined that adoption of the said resolutions is in and will further the public interest. If any freeholder would like to remove an item to be considered separately, please do so now.
Can I ask a question before moving, or is that out of sequence?
Question's fine.
Okay.
Because the motion's already on the table. So.
Okay, on the LSRP.
Yes.
My concern, you said something at the back end of your description that said it was by no fault of the county.
That's correct.
Is this a private property that has seepage that's coming into where we're is this something that we have a recovery aspect, or are we liable for this? Because LSRP can, because this can mean, this is how much now, but this can go on for a while.
The answer to your question is neither. We are neither responsible for the pollution that has been found, nor has a responsible party been identified. What DEP is requiring of the county is to address the pollution that has been found in the excavation, which provides for the footing of this bridge. Because there has been so much rain over the past several weeks, it was observed as material was being removed, soil, that there was a strong petroleum smell. And as the excavation continued, the petroleum smell and evidence of this pollution did not abate. And at that time, that is when the LSRP was called in. This is being conducted under the jurisdiction of the DEP, and we are responsible for those materials that we have removed and for the treatment of the water within the excavation that the county has been involved in. So
$50,000 is a lot of money for a remediation of that size. Is it really?
The answer to your question is a direct result of the rain that we've had. Okay. And as a result of that, the excavation has remained submerged, and it required that pumps be brought in. But because that water had been collecting in the excavation, just as a result of weather, and also being close to the embankment of the river there, the water had to be treated on site. And so it has certainly led to a greater cost for the remediation than what we had originally anticipated. We originally anticipated that approximately $60,000 would have been sufficient to address this. But again, because of the weather conditions and the fact that the volatile organics did not subside, it's costing us much more than we anticipated.
I would just request that we keep a close eye on this, because the LSRP numbers will move very quickly.
Absolutely.
And they go on indefinitely.
Yes, we actually do have a anticipated conclusion to the treatment once the footing is poured. They have reviewed both with the design engineer, the LSRP, and DEP the appropriate construction technique to cap where the intrusion of volatile organics is coming in, and provided that that solution functions the way that it's anticipated, that would conclude the county's obligation to remediate.
Thank you. Just
We'll keep it on.
Thanks.
I just want to make a comment also on the first couple of resolutions, which related to food services for the needy. You should know that Sussex County treats its needy very, very well. There are multiple agencies, nonprofits throughout the county that provide food services, clothing services, and you can hear more about it now that it's getting cooler outside. I know I worked with Manor House, and they feed anywhere from 50 to 100 people every single day, and it's an interesting thing to see people who are so grateful for getting a decent hot meal, especially on cold days. So Sussex County has a wonderful reputation for taking care of those who, for whatever reason, have difficulty taking care of themselves. And our health department division has done a fine job in making sure that they've been taken care of. Thank you very much for that. Done.
Could we please have a roll call?
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
We need a motion to approve the regular minutes of the meeting on October 24th, 2018.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, appointments and/or resignations. Can I have a motion to move them, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Okay, Greg, do you want to explain what this is?
Sure. This is a companion resolution to the reappointment of the county risk manager at the request of the statewide joint insurance fund. This provides for my appointment as the county's commissioner to the joint insurance fund, and our county treasurer, who is here this evening, as the alternate commissioner.
Okay, is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
Resolutions, have a motion to move them, please.
I'll
We have
make it.
A to B.
Motion.
Herb Yardley
Second.
moved it. Second is George Brown.
Yes, the first resolution A provides for a decrease in the change fund for the Office of Library Services. Resolution B establishes a change fund for the 6 library branches. Resolution C provides for an increase in the change fund for the county clerk's office. Resolution D provides for the temporary closure of County Route 519 and 630 in Branchville for the annual Christmas tree lighting and sing-along event on December 7th. Resolution E is something that
Yes.
I just heard Freeholder Lazaro acknowledge in support, urging the governor and the state legislature to properly allocate the 911 system emergency trust fund monies for county municipal communication center as required under federal law.
Any discussion?
Yes. On the resolution, I have no objection if you want to send this one, but there is a Senate bill, S2293. Aura Host sponsored it in January along with Al Wirtz and Parker, which compels the governor to pay out the 911. So it's gone through, I think it passed the Senate, and I think it's headed now to the House. And apparently this has pretty wide acceptance, or it's pretty wide going off because everybody's complaining about this. So I'd like to maybe for our next meeting, if you could take a look at that, Greg, and if appropriate, get it on the board and also do another resolution supporting it.
Any other discussion?
What was the number?
That's 2293.
Excuse me?
Took them 5 years to build.
And these are companion buildings.
Yeah.
Well, all in favor to approve the resolutions?
Aye.
Okay, George was the, moved it, and second? It's her. Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna roll call.
No.
Awards of contract, change orders, and bids. Can I have a motion to move that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, everybody please signify by saying aye. Aye. Really keep doing that.
Well, first is in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
I certainly can. The Resolution A provides for award of contract for liquid de-icing materials. Resolution B provides for the contract award for our industrial hygienists that we use from time to time, specifically to address indoor air quality issues, but other issues that arise throughout the county's facilities. Resolution C provides for the award of contract for the licensed electrical engineering firm that we use to assist us with construction or procurement documents relative to the county's emergency generation needs, emergency electrical generation needs. Resolution D is the extension of an award to the county's licensed site remediation professional. This is different than what the board considered previously. This is the larger project that is done for remediation throughout the various sites under the control or auspices of the DEP, particularly our garage facilities. Resolution E provides for a contract extension to the security system integrators who assist our division of facilities with a variety of the county's security needs.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion on the resolution?
Yes, not.
Can I have the roll call vote, please?
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
Okay, we have a resolution for the payment of bills and bill list A.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the payment of bills or bill list? Please the roll call, please.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Abstain.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
Resolution for the payment of bills and bill list B.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
Okay, next we have an introduction for first reading of the ordinance. Can I please have a motion to move this?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Greg, would you like to comment on it?
Yes, this capital ordinance before the board this evening allows for the appropriations of grant funds coming from the Department of Transportation's fiscal year 2018 Local Bridge Future Needs grant program in the amount of $1.25 million. Specifically, it's $900,000 for County Bridge X9 and $350,000 for County Bridge X11.
Is there any discussion?
These federal funds or state funds?
You know, you asked me that the last time.
I think they're federal funds.
Yes, I believe they are.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
A motion to authorize the clerk to advertise this resolution as introduced for first reading and also post same on the bulletin board in the lobby of the County Administrative Center, together with the notice of public hearing stating that a hearing will be held on November 28th, 2018 at 7 p.m. prior to final adoption of this ordinance. Can I please have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying
Aye.
Aye. Is it a roll? Oh, sorry, Lisa.
The roll call comes
I'm sorry,
next.
yeah, right.
D is resolution, the transfer of 2018 current appropriations. Greg, would you like to give us a summary of that? I need a motion first to move it.
So moved.
Second.
Yes, thank you. This is something that the Freeholder Board is asked to consider at this time on an annual basis. This is upon review by the county treasurer of where we believe our budget will land as we approach year's end. This allows for specifically transfers amongst various budget accounts that require board approval. The highlights of this particular transfer resolution include monies that are being appropriated between salary and wages and other expenses to the Office of County Council. This is as a result of the restructuring of County Council's office from a full-time employee to part-time contracted services. So this is moving money to allow us to be able to take that into account. The jail has proposed to purchase and equip 2 prisoner transport vans that this transfer will allow. And last but not least, there are purchases for fleet management. The board will recall that we had made a change in terms of how we were appropriating monies for fleet purchases in this year's budget. We recognized that there were some additional funds needed to cover and be able to meet the fleet manager's requirements for replacement of a number of vehicles across 11 different departments, and this transfer allows for those purchases of vehicles to be complete.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
Personnel resolution authorizing personnel agenda November 7th, 2018. Can I have a motion to remove, please?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Greg, would you give us a summary, please?
Yes, this covers 3 positions. One in the Division of Library Services. It's a reduction in hours from 28 hours a week to 25 hours a week. Again, in the library, it's a change in title. The existing title is Library Associate to Principal Library Assistant. From Principal Library Assistant to Library Associate. And the last is the creation of a new position entitled Principal Information Management Technology Technician. And this is the position, as I've advised the freeholders previously, as a result in the change of the state no longer supporting social services computer network. This is the individual that will be responsible for the maintenance of additional 40 to 50 workstations along with the associated support of that network.
Why is that under the library, or is that a different position in different departments?
This is a technology position within the Division of Social Services.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Lazaro?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Yardley?
Yes.
Administrative report?
Yes, thank you very much. As we were just talking about the capital ordinance authorizing fiscal year 2018 local bridge future needs funds, I'm pleased to report that we've received an announcement from the Department of Transportation that the county will be receiving $1.5 million from the Local Bridges Fund as part of the 2019 Local Bridges Fund Program. So those will be monies that will be used to continue to improve the county's bridge infrastructure. And I will be attending the League of Municipalities next week, anticipating several good sessions. Some of those sessions I've already distributed to the Freeholder Board, particularly concerning public information officers and professional government management. I will forward that information to you again. If it fits into your schedule, I think you'll find those programs beneficial. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. County Council?
Nothing for tonight, thanks.
Okay, there's no unfinished business, no new business. Okay, so this time can I have a motion to open up the floor to the public session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Everyone is asked to keep their comments to 5 minutes or less, followed by a 3-minute response time from the Freeholder Board. And please state your name and print name and municipality on sign-in sheet. Would anyone like to speak?
Come on.
Not hearing anyone, I'll bring it back to the board. Can I have a motion to close the
Motion
open
closed.
session? Motion, second.
I want to hear some.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. So I guess we have a few reminders that are listed on your sheet. Remember, there are the annual Veterans Day services available on the 11th, and Veterans Day is observed on on the 12th, and county offices will be closed. The others are just different planning boards and other services, and you can look them up if you need to be. At this moment, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying
Aye.
opposed.
The ayes have it. We have bills to sign?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. I'm gonna sign bills, and I gotta get in and see if there was something there